not your business. Like that. So, each person, according to his or her sort of mental disposition, to some people, this religion is more suitable. To some people, this religion suitable. Some people, without religion, is much happier. Like that. So, basically, I think we have no right, since you born in Buddhist family, since you born in Christian family, you should follow that. I think that's wrong. Completely, let them choose, like that. That's my view. So you come from Christian family, eventually you find Buddhist way of approach is more sort of but more rational. So I think, although I respect Christianity, any other religions, Islam or Judaism, all major religions, I respect. Over, I think, 1,000 years, they really served humanity. And present also, I think millions of people get immense inspiration from this religion. Sometimes create some problems. That I don't think is the mistake of the religion, but individual, we misuse. Right? Basically, I feel lack of moral principle. Therefore, religion also used for destructive emotion. Like that. So I respect all religion. However, now you can ask some scientist, a non-believer, I think they usually used to prefer Buddhist way of thinking. As I mentioned earlier, so they usually used to call rational. I think one got also the significant statement of Buddha. He mentioned, "Oh, my follower, bhikshus or scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith or devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." This is quite unique. So some of the Buddha's followers, they reject some of Buddha's own teaching. The reason, if you accept Buddha's teaching, this literally, it goes against reason. So we must emphasize on importance of reason. So therefore, we should take liberty to reject those Buddhist teaching. I also now follow that. Now the concept of Mount Meru, these things, many Buddhist literature mention that. I publicly reject, because that sort of goes against our reasons, now scientific finding, like that. So therefore, sometimes I jokingly telling, the size of sun and the moon. The Abhidhamma Karika, wrote by Vasubandhu, or the younger brother of Aya Sangha. You see, they more or less same size, little bigger. Sun little bigger than moon, but basically, 박사 ngaju chik dan chess. 박사 ngaju ngaji da 박사 ngaju tambe kewamat. 박사 jimu da kem dowa.
So according to Abhidhamma Karika, one says that the difference between the size of the sun and the moon is only one yoshina. The sun is one yoshina bigger than the moon.
Oh. So this morning and also yesterday, you see, when sunshine comes, one sun, some cloudy, see, little cloud, the sun looks almost same size of moon. So I think the Vasubandhu Sometimes I jokingly telling Basuband when he wrote that text, he naturally his age quite old, so his eyesight also not very good. But however, try to look moon, sun. Oh, then he felt almost same size. Now today, the scientific sort of also the new instrument precisely know how big sun and how much different the size, how much differences. But because of long distance, the Abhidhamma Kosha mentioned same level, go like that, and in the center of Mount Meru. So our day and night, you see, because of in Mount Meru in the center, when the sun goes the other side, then the southern side goes dark night. So these almost I think because of the Gyamshara.
These are things to laugh at.
So we have the liberty to reject, no problem. Like that. So I think this shows Buddhist sort of thinking is very rational. This one. Like that. Okay. Then next question? Trishtali. 그래서 나왔어요. 쉐베 시티로서 쉐베 시티스로서 알았어. 너희 가서 가셔야 돼서도 쉐베 시티 봐도 땡큐지. 디시랑 거야요 말다. 쉐베 시티 봐도 땡큐는 거야요 요래. 뭐야?
그걸 전이에요. 아니 저 나보다 가능했으나 디페골네.
가.
디페골.
딕보.
아니 먼저 디포직 채워라니 유숨 장고를 수요로 선발적으로 다두체. 아니 계시 보준주지 아니 자동체를 qab라니
read benedict 가서 무수야서 내는 이유입니다.
네. 보준주 시간이 있으셨으나 시리아체, 아프가니스탄체, 데리가라니 기원이체 아니 중동에 오라니 그 자동체를 qab수하니 작조랑 통대로와 아니 오데데가가 자동체체 아니 지금도 친구차체 아니 작조 일람수 누가 있나 아니 거기에 이 딕베기 아니 뷰 선발주와 단독이 아니 주당이 간주 주고 있는스
지켜다. 지켜보면.
전이어디 아리슈나니 레규비고를 맞수 넘바신데 자네니 레규비 케르비오와 아니 맞수 간다 묘는발라 아리슈구고 예시고이나 이 레규비 내가 가르치고이네 레가 유셔제 내가 야스 중앙이네 레레 누가 중앙이네 레레시 아니 그래서 아니 먼저 다들 보시면 나 먼저 쉬고 있나 아니 그 레가 치료와 이 구신들이 있으니 어디 좀 디버티니 먼저를 중앙에 가리는 거야 아니 레디에 가리스 주변에서 레디인데
그래서善修哎
라온
人性修
말말 레금데디
들어봐.
라온 부디에
세상 그 아주 다善修呢
라온
자와 미 시야겐디 다 미다 가서 쇠에 차와를 때는 시 그봐 시야도 그래 내체
라온
그봐 다디 미신다 저기 쇠에 차와 지잖아 다디 그 시야도 그래 내를 받아 내 매버지 시야도 가고로 저 다데 근저스로 거스로나 다데 저데디 당내 지구다
Can you translate that in English yourself?
랑교는 양로
And so
translate
there are
in briefly in English.
It's about when we talk about creating karma or accumulating karma, as we usually say, and on the basis of our motivation, and then the action itself, the preparation and the action itself, and then finally, when, for example, in the case of killing, you have the motivation to kill somebody, and then you actually go to act. You engage in the action of killing, and then finally the other person or the animal dies. And so these factors, the motivation, the action, and the final death should happen in order for us to create this karma of killing. And so his question relating to this is that when someone, a child, for example, is born in Syria or Afghanistan and so forth, where people are indulging in lots of terrorism and killing others and so forth. And so how does that relate to these kids, people who were brought up in these countries? How do they create such karmas? Because they may not have the motivation and so forth, as we explained. And then the second part of the question is about when one, for example, he steps on an ant or some insect, what kind of karma is was created by that? By what kind of karma does that ant or the insect die?
The Tangodi, I think first part, as you know, many Indian, non-theistic religion, we have the concept of rebirth, no beginning, beginningless of life, go like that. That also, you see, the finally, subtle consciousness, which I already sort of mentioned, the subtle consciousness is still consciousness, momentarily changing. So that shows there must be causes. In the cause, substantial cause and cooperative factors. The substantial cause must be same nature. So that's the reason, you see, if you accept beginning of subtle mind, then that subtle mind, you say, its substantial cause must be some physical or something, or without cause. That's illogical. So therefore, consciousness, no beginning. Go like that. So then rebirth theory come. And furthermore, there are people, you see, who shows certain sort of, even in child, at a young age, some sort of different, mental attitude there. So these, I think, previous lives, some sort of imprints like that. So now, children, as you mentioned, like Afghanistan or Syria, these, firstly, you see, due to their karma, they born. That also due to their karma, previous karma. And then, I think, at the very young age, I think the children in Afghanistan or Syria, India, Tibet, I think not much differences. But then, actual sort of surrounding, then you see makes some differences. So that also, of course, you see some connection with karmic link. Now, karma or action. Karma means action. So action, there are physical level action, mental level action, verbal level action, and there are also, you see, the grosser, more subtler. So, the very subtle sort of the level, the karmic law of causality, till 가서다 시제 지법방 들리지 마시고는 패지 렌더 차시 차와 떠서 가고였다. 영사오르셔야 돼.
Unless one reaches the state where one has overcome all the defilements within one's mind, and particularly what is known as the cognitive obscuration, or some kind of defilement which hinders you from knowing everything as it is. And unless you reach such a state, it's very difficult to tell what kind of karma has caused certain things to happen very precisely.
But grosser level, of course, you see, if you harm someone, you see, it brings some suffering, pain. So any action, verbal action, physical action, creates some uncomfortable other. That's negative karma. Tikva. Any action brings some joyful, or at least some peace. That is Gyawa. Kasa. Positive karma. So that, I think, obviously, we can see a certain action brings more uncomfortable, certain action brings more because of the comfortable. So that's the demarcation, Gyawa Tikva. More subtle level, more complicated. So ultimately, any verbal action, physical action, entirely depend on motivation. Motivation is sincere, compassionate motivation. And a certain physical action, verbal action, even if it creates some uncomfortable other, but your motivation is sincere, then okay, no problem. Samge wala tikva me.
So when you are motivated by some positive attitude, even if you may do some harm to others, that doesn't really turn out to creating negative karma.
So, most important is motivation. Mental level, karma or mental level is something most important. That through awareness, through training. And so like that. Now next question. So rang chö de yao sha do tu xia. Tu xia.
Good afternoon, His Holiness. My name is Rohit Kumar. So my question is regarding the state of secular ethics in today's time, where the world is possibly heading towards a clash of religions.
No, I don't think. I think generally, if you know each other, different religion, and meeting with genuine practitioner, then you develop understanding about the value or teaching of other tradition. Then naturally, you see, you develop some sort of admiration or respect. Now the problem is, you see, the people not seriously, not sincerely follow their own religion. So religion carries just a name. So then the all negative emotion still remain very raw. Now, since that person not seriously follow their own religion, including Islam. Islam, genuine Islam practitioner must extend our love towards entire the creation of Allah. And the real meaning of jihad is combat your own internal emotion, positive emotion, destructive emotion. That's the real meaning of jihad. Not sort of killing or harming other. So, any religion see, the main practice is practice of love, forgiveness, tolerance, these things. And no religious sort of tradition say their sort of the God is full of anger. Nobody said that. Their God is full of love, full of compassion, infinite love. Whether Christianity or Islam or Judaism and so on. Nowadays, although you see some conflict in the name of religion, I think 1,000 years that's there. In this country also is sometimes that problem. And even Tibet also, within Buddhist also, sometimes you see fighting with different color of head. So red head sect, yellow head sect, black head sect. So these just use the name of religion, not seriously practice, not seriously follow. So that's, I think, weakness of human being. And then on top of that, the political power or economy interest. That also, you see, there's a main sort of, I think, cause, main factor. And then use religion. And then religious people also, you see, not not sort of intelligence or intelligent, just a faith. And then some people, some individual can manipulate easily. So religious people should know the whole system and the main sort of teaching and implement seriously. Then I think this conflict in the name of religion can reduce. Then the first step, now here, for example, Muslim, Indian Muslim, obviously Shia and Sunni, no conflict. And Muslim, Hindu, and Christian, I think millions of Christian, millions of Hindus, millions of Muslims live together. So I think this country is Muslim because from their birth, the young child, they already know there are different religions there. And then, as far as I know, Malaysian Muslim also is more open-minded because there are a large number of Chinese businessmen, women, most of them Buddhist. And then also large number of Indians, these are Hindu. So therefore, the Malaysian Muslim, they already know there are different religions. Then Indonesia also. Firstly, I think Indonesia's case, firstly, in ancient time, Buddhism much sort of flourished in some of the island of Indonesia. So some Buddhist temple like Khazajoti, Borobudur there. So you see, that makes differences. Then the Arab Muslim know that kind of conduct, isolated. On top of that, I think some politicians, some leaders, I think manipulate. And also, I think, to some extent, I think Western attitude. The Muslim world, listen, they have some kind of fear. The Western technology, Western civilization may sort of harm their sort of faith. And in fact, I think some, books, right? Some books, you see, they mentioned there is some kind of clash, Western civilization and the Muslim world. Such sort of thinking, I think, very dangerous. You see, Muslim also, you see, the Western civilization means democracy, rule of law, and more material development, modernization. Eventually, Arab world also need that. So Saudi Arabia, I think, some kind of kingdom. Now gradually some changing. In the past, Saudi Arabian female, I think much sort of because of the low position. Now these are gradually changing. So therefore, I think democracy is future of the world. Rule of law, democracy means kings or religious leaders. Now, some kind of ruling by religious leaders or kings. That I think outdated. So therefore, I think no genuine clash, Muslim and Western civilization. Because of Muslim country, some of these Muslim country, their social system, little bit because of the old thinking. So therefore, Muslims themselves now changing. Education is key factor. I think Western nation must provide facility for education, health, instead of helping weapons. Not that way. Helping education. I have opportunity visit Jordan a few occasions. In Jordan, Amman, yes, you see, some occasion I met some student. So because of they already have modern education. So when I met them, they are sort of considered dressed like a Muslim, and particularly those girls, like that. So when I met some Muslim lady, I also see jokingly do this. But then when we discuss the sort of the similar, very similar to an ordinary sort of modern school sort of the children, no problem. So that therefore education makes differences. In Iraq, Syria, I think in this area, I think modern education not fully developed. And in different nations, Western nations also exploit their oil. It's not genuine sort of helping education field is like that. So that's my view. So few Muslim individuals, you see, carry some violent action. You should not describe them as a Muslim terrorist. These are terrorists, not Muslim. Muslim, as soon as one person who belongs to Muslim community creates bloodshed, and then that person no longer genuine Muslim. That's Muslim friends say that. So, for example, in Burma, you see, a few years ago, when the Burmese Buddhists harming Burmese Muslim. So then Time magazine, the cover one Buddhist monk, Burmese Buddhist monk, and describe Buddhist terrorist. So if people used to consider Buddhism also some connection with terrorist, then suppose I am one of the leading person of Buddhism, so I should be terrorist. And these monks, these Buddhists should consider terrorist. So there are cases, some person who belongs to Buddhist community, but acting terrorist. That's separate. person who belongs to Buddhist community, acting terrorist, no longer genuine Buddhist. Similarly, any person who belongs to Muslim community, acting terrorist, no longer genuine Islam, Muslim. Okay. I often now telling that in America or in Europe. So when the reports say Muslim, Buddhist terrorist, I also feel a little uncomfortable. So then millions of, I think around billion Muslim, in their eyes, because here, Muslim terrorist, I think they feel uncomfortable. One thing, I think recent event, quite clear, that after the September 11th tragic situation, tragedy in New York and Washington, then American response, eventually, you see the war with Iraq. I think these are really mistake. Actually, the 12th, September that year, just next day, I wrote a letter to President Bush because I know him very well. I respect him. So I wrote a letter while I express my condolence. Then I express, I hope this problem must, could be dealt with a non-violent way. So if that happened, I think today's this kind of Muslim world, a lot of negative feeling towards the West, I don't think happen. So therefore, you see, all these Buddhist concept, Patitya Samuppada, everything interconnected, interdependent. So some person, because of the mistake, that effect, that vibration, you see, reach there. And from there, another vibration come. And then eventually, some good thing or bad things will happen. So we can't blame independently or absolutely. Okay. Next question.
It's my privilege to have this opportunity to ask a question to you. And my name is Gyati Joy. I'm working there in District Hospital Tawang as a doctor. So I have seen people from different walks of life, both rich and poor. So my question is, in this world, we see lots of people are dying in the name of religion. Many are fighting. And they say that they are fighting for their own gods, but nobody has seen their own gods till now, from their own eyes. And on the process, they have forgotten humanity. So I feel if it's proven that there is a God, or there is non-existence of such God, then this problem can be solved. If you show them that there is a single God, every religion believes that they have single gods, like Islam have Allah and Christians have Jesus. But if we prove that there is nothing like different gods, different names, only a single God, then and in their own eyes, or if you prove that there is no such God, no such things like God, it's there only deed, then such killings and hatred can be averted, sir. So is there any such solution, sir? When there is no such solution, sir, when this hatred and killing will stop in this world, when there will be peace in this earth, when people will stop killing each other in the name of religion, when sense of humanity will prevail in this earth.
I think more or less the same questions. So not only that, I think Jainism, no concept of God, and Buddhism, no concept of God, no creator, self-creation. Buddha clearly stated. And then, Parmanabatika, Samanamre, Parmanabatika, Karika, clearly mentioned. You see, Taparanju Kibu Yonshing Maris.
So, according to Master Dhammakirti, his permanent Vartika, he says there cannot be, it's not possible for some agent which called God, which is permanent, unchanging, and self-evolved.
And each monastery, Sibokolo, Tuga.
So when we visit these monasteries, in front of the monasteries, you usually find painting or the wheel of life.
Oh. So the ultimate source of suffering, of birth, is ignorance. No creator. So long ourselves, you see, much sort of ignorant there, because of ignorance there, then that causing because of suffering. So in order to because of the escape from suffering, we must deal with this ultimate ignorance. So it clearly shows there is no creator. So self-creation is the Buddhist concept. But we have to be realistic. Out of 7 billion, 1 billion non-believer, then 6 billion believer, among them about 1 billion Muslim, 1 billion Christian, then less 1 billion Hindus. Then I think about now, either now, because of a lot of Chinese now become Buddhist. So today, 400 million Buddhist population there. So now Buddhist number also now increasing, perhaps nearly 1 billion. So Muslim, there are billion. This is reality. Whether their concept right or wrong, we must respect them. They are important part of humanity. So therefore, now secular ethics cover all religion. Because all religion talks about loves, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, self-discipline, like that. So that's my way of approach. So, I think, firstly, I think we should reach out. I am suggesting some Indian Muslims, I think Indian Muslim, should take more serious sort of responsibility, serious concern about the problems in Muslim world. And you see, these Muslim so-called terrorists, these also human beings. When they born, not terrorists. When they are 10-year-old, I think 11, 13 years, and are not terrorists. Different circumstances eventually create that. So we must reach out these people. Some occasion, I think in America, some Muslim group we met, and I told, you American Muslim, that they should take more serious responsibility, so to reach out. Those Muslims in Muslim countries were more isolated. So like that. So therefore, that's my view. So anyone who want to destroy whole Muslim, impossible. Or whole Christian, impossible. Whole Buddhist, impossible. So we have to live together. Like, I think, like sort of, little sort of difficult husband and wife, sometimes fighting, but have to live together. Next question.
Your Holiness, such a privilege to be able to ask this question. When we see it from the perspective of ethics, how do you view it? When monks engage in polity and political work, does it not conflict with religious practice?
Sir. Go. Yes, that's, I have the view since many years in Ladakh and also men. If politics, something clean politics, just serving people, then okay. Sometimes politics become a little bit dirty politics. The people who involve politics, their moral standard not that sort of adequate. So then politics become dirty politics. Similarly, religion also. People who carry religious sort of activities, their mind not very pure. Then religion also become dirty religion. So politics as far as a little bit sort of dirty, then we Buddhist monk must remain distance ourselves. So that's my view. And since I think a few years, I am suggesting the monk, we are carrying the Buddha's message. So one individual monk indulge politics, then the whole name, something damaging, like that. Okay. So usually I describe Lama politics, including myself. So therefore, since 2011, I totally retired from political responsibility. And not only myself retired, but also 4th century old tradition, Dalai Lama institution, eventually automatically become head of both temple and religion. Now that voluntarily, happily, proudly now cease. So sometimes I jokingly expressing that this sort of tradition, dual responsibility, now that started from 15th Dalai Lama. So now 14th Dalai Lama voluntarily sees that. So if 15th Dalai Lama return or come, what he will say, but there's no danger, he never will return.
Your Holiness, thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Ranju Dodam, I'm a journalist. Asking questions is part of my profession. I hope I can make this a good one. I want to just ask, not just specifically to Buddhism, but to all religions, have rituals become more important for followers these days than the actual pursuit of the knowledge of religion? As opposed to, if rituals are not as important as knowledge, then should we stop doing the rituals altogether? Or why spin the prayer wheel? Why do Kora of the Gompa? Instead, should we not pursue the wisdom and philosophy of the religions instead?
As far as Buddhism in general, particularly the Sanskrit tradition, ritual are not important. As I publicly mentioned here also, on many occasions, the tantric practice, there are some rituals there. We just jump in the practice of Tantrayana. That's wrong. Tantrayana, something like Kasota, Thosa Kant Valley theory.
It's like somewhere on the upper stories of the house or building.
So we have to climb step by step. So without a proper foundation, then these practice just a ritual, not much meaning, not much effect. My own daily practice, of course, this visualization of different mandala and these, but I found real effect come from analytical meditation about shunyata, about bodhicitta. That really transformed my emotion, not deity yoga. So, basically, as far as Buddhists who follow a Nalanda tradition, ritual not important. We must sort of use our intelligence maximum way, through that way transform our emotion. That's the proper way, not ritual. And the individual who already have some experience, then on top of that, some ritual, then okay. But the other tradition, I have no right sort of interfere with. As far as Buddhism in general, particularly Nalanda tradition, a ritual not important.
Your Holiness, my name is Samaj. I'm a doctor. Our work is considered as one of the noble job. We treat many patients with infections through antibiotics just to bring relief or to liberate suffering from one human life, wherein we kill millions of unseen microorganisms. And we Buddhists believe that every sentient being has equal life, irrespective of size or color. So, Your Holiness, please enlighten me whether it is a sin or not. If it's a sin, how far is the sin? How big is the sin? And does it going to bring some changes in my life?
I think virus, these, of course, living thing, but whether there is consciousness or not, still we don't know. Like plant, there is life, but no consciousness. So killing means not only life, but feeding, consciousness. That we consider sentient being. So I don't know these certain kasoda. But really simple chidong samde shegyorda, chidong nasi. Doesn't song sha in a manner.
So in our text also there is mention of some kind of simple microbiome the 84,000 in our body. So I'm not sure whether they could be considered as sentient beings or not.
It's a certain in the stomach, certain sort of worms. Sometimes you see taking some medicine and then come out. So I think truly sentient being. So these, now we have to judge in order to restrain harming these and sacrifice that person's life. Again, we have to judge the person's what kind of life. Good person is a meaningful life, so also useful to the society. Then his life, something worthwhile to survive. For that reason, some sacrifice, some worms, I think worthwhile. If the person a troublemaker, then better to die.
My name is Sophia Ledu.
Oh.
Utmost respect and honor to you, His Holiness. My question is, in Tibetan Buddhist calendar, some days are marked as auspicious and inauspicious. So I want to ask that,
Oh.
are there really such days as auspicious and inauspicious? And should one really follow this in today's modern world?
Those people who believe astrology, right? Astrology. Every some kind of the important sort of, including marriage or these things, you see, must be a good day or something. See, many authentic Tibetan sort of practitioner, they openly stated, and so around like another just drama, 세장 예바다 지 까르마 예바 딘데기타네 총 좀데가 송야 말이스 뒤송야.
So many authentic Buddhist practitioners have said that something that bad or good things happen to you is because of your own karma, that good karma, and it has nothing to do with some kind of astrological zodiac signs or stars.
My own tutor, the great, not only just Lama, but great scholar, great practitioner. Or one day, I think, in many sort of cases, when I have some sort of doubt or certain things, some dilemma, I ask him. Then he gives some suggestions. At the beginning, sometimes I doubt. But eventually, his suggestion became very, very correct. Then one occasion, I asked him, according to my experience, you have some sort of maungwa, ngashinti.
Some sort of precognition, seeing the future.
I asked him. Then he, very good monk, never tell lie. But then, when I asked that, he mentioned, occasionally some feeling about future comes. So he admit. So great Lama. Now he often is telling me, the Linguichi, Nyabakonzum Yimudi Kiva in Sori.
So my own senior tutor, this late Ling Rinpoche, so he used to tell me that he was born on a day which is considered inauspicious. Nyamba Kuzum, which means a day which is filled with 9 inauspicious omens.
Kasa, Nyabakonzum Yimudi, Gaya Kametro, Kachi Yorba, Chisha Jore. Nyabakonzum, but Tukja Shivsi, Shego Danzo.
So Tibetans consider this day a very bad day, even to the extent of saying that you should not even read the scriptures.
But for me, when I study, Nyabakonzum is very good. That day, holiday. So like that, you see, as a Buddhist, we never consider these kasota sirang sangye ke chun shen gong na.
As genuine Buddhist practitioners, we do not pay much attention to these auspicious signs of days or zodiac signs.
But some sort of text teaching, some sort of tantric sort of initiation, it mentions something. But that is entirely according, you see, the ordinary people's way of thinking or mentality like that. So as far as astrology is concerned, I have no belief. Therefore, one occasion in our Kasa Minjika,
Medical and astrological institute in Dar es Salaam.
one occasion they invited me. I expressed my own view. I don't, medicine, Tibetan medicine is considered really, I appreciate. Really help my sort of body. Wonderful. But as far as astrology is concerned, I have no belief. So then the student of that astrology, much discouraged. So later, another occasion, I have to sort of mention, me personally, not believe this astrology, but as a part of a Tibetan sort of tradition, you must study. Like that. Then I think final two questions.
His Holiness, I'm Tenzin Gyatso, doctor by profession. His Holiness, you always refer everyone as friend or dokpo, and we refer you as a teacher or lama who shows the path towards the Dhamma. So may I know what is the true or actual relationship between yours and us?
Korsa. Chokusa. I think human contact. You are a human being. I'm a human being. We have this human language. And you also have emotion. I also have emotion. So some of my experience can help you. So my experience cannot sort of share other animal because they are not a human being, not this human intelligence. So I always say 7 billion human beings, mentally, emotionally, physically, same. Like that.
Thank you.
Your Holiness, my deepest salutations to you. I am Sonam Noze, and my question is on consciousness. When in Buddhism philosophy, when is the beginning of consciousness in human life? Whether it is there before conception or after conception?
Oh, Kosa. I already mentioned no beginning. If you accept the beginning, then either humility or kyaran yana ka.
So you are asking whether consciousness started at the time of conception or not, as a human being.
Like before conception or after conception?
Oh. I think I mentioned my public teaching. Some occasion in America, I asked some doctors, this is the conception, the mother's womb, no defect, perfect, and the father's semen and the mother's egg, also no defect. And then semen, that something like a worm, you see that, enter egg. Then that 100% show take life or not. They say no. So then this is bring question. What's third factor? Physical level, semen and egg join, but still not life take place. So that brings our sort of concept, the another sentient being who have karmic link of that two couple, and then enter that kasa jyoti. So then, and according, I think, Jainism, and mainly I think Jainism and Buddhism, since no creator, so therefore, you see, no beginning of life. And also I think Sankhya philosophy, as far as Purusha is concerned, I think no beginning, no end. When we reach moksha, according to the Sankhya philosophy, the Atma, Purusha, still there, no end. So many ancient Indian sort of philosophical views, you see, have the same view of life after life. And Buddhism, including Buddhism, like that. Okay. So, thank you. thank you. I really appreciate have the opportunity to take some questions. Whether my answer satisfy you or not, I don't know. But I have the sort of, cause of privilege, some explanation. Thank you.
His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama of compassion, Lord of Akalekeshara, to millions of people like me, Honorable Chief Minister Sri Pema Khanduji, Reverend Abbot of Tawang Monastery, all other Reverend Rinpoches, Honorable Parliamentary Secretary Sri Jambe Tashiji, Honorable MLA Sri Tsering Tashiji, Honorable Chairman Doka Sri Jambe Tashiji, and all other dignitaries, media persons, students, and ladies and gentlemen present here. It is indeed a great privilege for me to get this lifetime opportunity to propose the vote of thanks on this very special and auspicious occasion, although His Holiness do not believe in auspicious days. At the outset, I, on behalf of the district administration and all those present here, extend our heartiest gratitude to His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, for bestowing his kindness and compassion on us, and by delivering his inspiring talk on secular ethics and happiness, and also answering all the questions. We really thank Your Holiness for showing us the path to achieve happiness, irrespective of our religious affinities. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's secular ethic transcend material, religion, cultural boundaries, and define values such as compassion, training of mind in pursuit of happiness. I believe it is because of His Holiness' unlimited love and compassion for the people of Man region that His Holiness has taken the strenuous journey by road to this far-flung place to bless us. His Holiness always has often been quoting a verse which I may be permitted to quote here. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. I firmly believe that Your Holiness will continue to remain in this world to dispel the miseries of this world as long as sentient beings remain. After listening to His Holiness, I'm sure each one of us will endeavor to become better human beings in the interest of our own happiness and interest of the happiness of all others. 58 years ago, Your Holiness had taken this route in very difficult circumstances. We hope that Your Holiness will return by this same route very soon in happier circumstances and will establish Your Holiness' homeland as the epicenter of universal peace, compassion, brotherhood, and kindness. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Chief Minister Sri Pema Khanduji, who has given all the support and guidance in making this program of Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama in Tawang, a grand success. I also thank Sri Jambe Tashiji, Honorable Parliamentary Secretary, Sri Jambe Wangdiji, Chairman Doka, for all their support and guidance. My special thanks goes to Sri Tsering Tashiji, Honorable MLA, who has been fully involved and has been guiding us in all the preparations for all the programs of His Holiness in Tawang. I also express my heartiest gratitude to Kungai Tempe Sring La, Sri Tenzin Takla La, and Sri Karma Rinjin La, and their entire team for guiding and helping us in making all the programs of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, a successful one. I also express my heartiest gratitude to all the officials, particularly the Tawang Manpa Employees Society, Superintendent of Police and his team, Padmashri Lama Thupten Punchok, public leaders, volunteers, whose names cannot be taken due to time constraint, who have contributed immensely in making the visit of His Holiness a grand success. Of course, I would be failing in my duty if I do not express my heartiest gratitude to the abbot and monks of Tawang Monastery for making all the preparations so as to make His Holiness program a successful one. At last, I thank one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your voice, very good voice. I used So you also, I think, competing my voice. Rangesu